starting out with qualitative data. A big theme of this chapter is going to be frequency and frequency distribution. So let's start out by saying what a frequency distribution is. And a frequency distribution lists each category of data along with its frequency. And obviously I need to tell you what frequency means, but before we do that, let me just again clarify that categories of data, when we talk about that, what we're talking about are data values for a qualitative, which is also called a categorical variable. So the categories are basically just the values of this type of variable. Okay, what's frequency? Frequency is how many times, frequency, here we go, let's write frequency here to start the sentence. Frequency is how many times the category or data value occurs. And then this information is often presented graphically in what's called a bar graph. Now, an alternate approach is to list what's called relative frequency in what is then known as a relative frequency distribution. What is relative frequency? Well, relative frequency is the proportion or percent of all the data values. Okay, let's see some examples of that. Okay, so for example, a physical therapist wants to determine what types of rehabilitation are needed by her patients. So she obtains a random sample of 30 of her patients and records the rehabilitation for each person. So here's what she records. So she's basically recording which body part needs physical therapy rehabilitation. So let's see. First of all, what's the variable? Well, the variable is, you could call it body part, or I guess I'll call it type of rehabilitation. Again, there's some leeway in naming things here. Again, you might call it body part rehabilitated. That's probably more specific. I kind of like that better. Oh dear, I can't spell and talk at the same. Rehabilitated. Okay. What are the data values for the variable? Well, it's those specific body parts. So we have back. What else is there? There's wrist. There's elbow. There's hip. There's shoulder. There's knee, hand, groin, and neck. Okay, so those are the data values. Oh, by the way, is this variable, is it qualitative or quantitative? Yeah, it's qualitative. You can easily see that it's qualitative when the data values are not numbers. Then it has to be qualitative. All right, so let's see what a frequency distribution would be for this. So we're going to list the variable. So here's our frequency distribution. We're going to head the table with the words frequency distribution, so we know that's what we're looking at. This first column is for the body part, so I'm going to put a header on the first column so that I know what the category, or what the variable is that these are data values for. And over here we're going to put the frequency. Now again, the frequency is the number of occurrences of each data value. So I'm just going to count and fill in. So let's see, the first one in my frequency distribution, the first one we wrote down is back. So I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So back occurs 12 times. That is its frequency. And then we just fill in going on down. Wrist, how many times did that occur in this random sample? 1, 2. So its frequency is 2. Next we have elbow. Let's see, 1. Elbow only occurs once. Its frequency is 1. Next is hip. So we count the number of hips. 1, 2. And that's it for hip. So the frequency for hip is 2. What about shoulder? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 4 occurrences for shoulder. So the frequency of the shoulder data value is 4. Knee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why don't you guys fill in the last 3 for hand, groin, and neck? I'll just shut up for a minute here and let you do that. Okay, I get 2 for hand. I count just 1 groin and I think just 1 neck also. Yeah, okay. Okay, so hopefully you're clear on what we're doing there. A good check, just that we counted correctly, is to notice that we should have 30 total entries, right? Because there's 1, 2, 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so there's 30 boxes in our table here. It doesn't hurt to just make sure that these total up to 30 as they should. And I checked ahead of time, and indeed they do, so we're okay on that. Okay, so this is a frequency distribution for this data. Frequency distributions are very often, again, summarized in what's called a bar graph. So I'm listing the frequency along the vertical axis here, and then the horizontal axis gets the data values. So these are the body parts rehabilitated. And you should, so we should actually do what I'm doing here, label what our horizontal axis represents and what our vertical axis represents. And then what is it we're producing here? We're producing a frequency bar graph. Okay, so here's how you make the bar graph. We said the back data value has frequency 12. So we're going to make a bar or rectangle that goes up to 12 on the vertical axis. Hopefully you can see on your printout, I've got some grid lines in there to help us draw these. Okay, so this is frequency for the back. Now we need to leave a gap between the rectangles. So I've kind of reflected that in the way I put the grid lines in. Next, the wrist frequency 2. So I'm going to make a rectangle that goes here and here, goes up to 2. So the 2, notice the rectangles do not touch each other. Okay, and then continuing on, the frequency for elbow is 1. That would be here. The frequency for the hip is 2, so we'll draw a rectangle that goes up to the 2 for the hip. The frequency for the shoulder was 4, so I need a rectangle that goes up to the 4. Again, be careful to leave gaps between them. Frequency for the knee was 5, so let's see, I think, yeah, 5 is going to be here. frequency for the hand was 2. Where's the 2? The 2 is here. And groin and neck both had a frequency of 1, so up to there. Okay, and so the point of a bar graph as opposed to just a table is that you get a nice visual of not just which ones are more, but you can see visually that this one, for example, has a lot more than any of these, stuff like that.